Benvenuti a tutti and welcome to another edition of Italian America Long Island. My name is Dave Anthony Settedicati. Tonight we have two very special guests from the Order Sons and Daughters of Italy in America. We have Mr. Bob Ferrito, who is the state president of the Order, and we have Mr. Keith Wilson, who is the state deputy. Bob, welcome.
Welcome.
Keith,
thank you.
Thank you, Dave.
Welcome to the show. We're
Nice to
so
be here.
happy to have you here.
Thanks for having us.
So, Bob, why don't you tell us a little bit about the Order in general?
Well, you know, the Order was founded over 110 years ago, and it was originally founded by Dr. Vincent Solero and 5 other compatriots down on Mulberry Street, Little Italy, New York. It was originally founded to help the immigrants assimilate into America, the American way. And that's what he was basically looking to do. But over the years, we no longer have that need, and we're more into philanthropic organizations, charities, and whatnot. And we're over 8,000 members, and we're basically philanthropic. You know.
Philanthropic. So, Keith, could you tell us a little bit about the charities that the organization supports?
Sure. Well, the 7 or 8 main ones are Cooley's Anemia, which is a national charity. We also have, of course, the Gift of Sight, which is for blind, helping the blind and people that have eye issues. We also have one of our favorite charities is the Garibaldi Museum that we help out on Staten Island. We own that, and of course we donate to that. We also have the Cancer Care. We have the other main charities that we support, as well as those that I mentioned, which are of course great, and all the lodges get together at convention and give donations to it.
We have autism, Alzheimer's. We also donate to.
So, but there are other functions. It's not merely a philanthropic.
No, absolutely not. We naturally support our Italian heritage, and any issues that come up, anti-defamation with our Commission for Social Justice. John Fryer, our chairperson, is very active in that, and we try to make sure that our Italian heritage is respected. Italian communities are aware of what's going on with the various lodges throughout the entire New York State that are active in their communities that help make this happen.
And Keith, could you tell us a little bit about the organization of the lodges and the Grand Lodge and that? How is that organized? How is this done?
Well, from the top down, like Robert, of course, as you introduced him as our state president, and he has what's called the Grand Council that he leads for the state of New York Grand Lodge. He's also the president of our very philanthropic foundation, okay, as automatically with his office. And he has this from the state down as vice presidents and the recording secretary, all the way down to the state trustees. Then he has a cabinet that he appoints, one of which is myself. And then, of course, there are other committee chairs and sub-chairs and co-chairs that he appoints, and they form their subcommittees to work under him and do the work we just talked about, raising money, and for fraternal things as well. Then, of course, there's like the local lodge, your lodge being Dr. Solero here in Smithtown, Robert's Lodge, the Calandra Lodge in Yonkers, named after a very well-known state senator, and my lodge, the Columbus Lodge, named after, of course, our discoverer of America. Those are also the same kind of setups where the president of a lodge is the leader, and there's this cabinet council under him. And then, of course, they appoint committees and chairs and co-chairs and do the work usually meet once a month or twice a month, and do the work of the order, just mirroring the laws and the procedures that our state president puts in place to run their lodges accordingly. But it's important to remember, we speak with one voice. Our state president's the spokesman, and we do the work of the order based on his direction and ultimately the votes of the Grand Council.
And having said that, we
Yes.
belong to we're a national order. So
Yes, I wanted to ask you, how closely do you work as the president of the state of New York? How closely do you work with the national organization?
I actually have been fortunate enough to be appointed chairperson of the cabinet, the president's cabinet for the national organization. I was appointed by Vera Girolami, that was elected national president last year in August, and she asked me to chair the president's cabinet. So I've been working very closely with all the presidents throughout the entire country, and with our national president and our national council.
Bob, I have a question that
Sure.
maybe some people might want to know. Are there Sons of Italy's in every state of the Union?
No, we don't have Grand Lodges in every state of the Union. Some of the states, what they call the subordinate lodges, they're not large enough to have a Grand Lodge. You have to have over 500 members to have a Grand Lodge.
Have a Grand Lodge.
So you have just under that, and but they are part of the national organization, absolutely.
Would I find the Sons of Italy in every state in the Union?
No, you wouldn't.
You wouldn't.
No.
So if I went to Alaska, perhaps?
I don't think we have one of those.
Okay. All right. So where are the most?
Unfortunate, but we don't.
It would be wonderful. Where are the most active lodges or the?
You have California, Massachusetts, New York, Pennsylvania was very active. They've scaled down a little bit. You have Florida's very active. You have some out west that we have some. California being the largest one. We have one in Seattle, very active, and that's basically it. You have mostly those are the lodges that are active.
Wonderful. Keith, why don't you tell us a little bit about your history with the organization, your personal history?
In 2002, a friend of mine, Tony Ventura, who's from Columbus Lodge, asked me to join the lodge as a member of the Chamber of Commerce and things we did in the community. I said, sure. I had already 30 years in the Knights of Columbus. I said, maybe it's time to do something else. I said, okay. So I joined Columbus Lodge, and I became an officer right away, recording secretary, and went right up to vice president and president in 2011. And then along the way, I became a state trustee and did work in my local lodge as well as the state. And along the way, I met people like Robert and other state presidents before him, Tom Lupo, Joe T. Trapani, Carlo Matucci, Nancy Quinn, Sal Anzalata, Joe Rondinelli, Carolyn Rears, and of course, Robert. And you get to know people, you make friends with them, you really become like an extended family. And that's really what one of our values is: liberty, equality, fraternity, family. And that's what we do. We treat each other like family. Well, for instance, when my dad passed 3 years ago, Robert and his friends from Yonkers came down to his wake. And this is caring and sharing as we do. And that's why it's a great organization to belong to. It's really about the old type Italian values in the 21st century.
Well, that's a great way to put it.
Yeah,
Keith.
absolutely. Yeah.
And Bob, how about you? What's your history with the organization? How did you get started?
I was I joined a lodge, a local lodge in the Bronx when I did live in the Bronx before I moved up to Yonkers back in 1989. Santa Rosalia Lodge, which no longer is in existence. And when they left, I lost a little touch. I kind of lost touch with the order. But then I joined back in I believe it was 1999. I started to get active again with the lodge up in Yonkers, the John D. Calandra Lodge. And I got, as soon as I got active and I got bit by the bug again, you know, my Italian roots started coming, growing, and they started spreading. I just got bit by the bug, and there was no stopping me. I became president of the lodge, and then I went on to become a New York State trustee. And then I filled almost all the chairs. I was treasurer, I was orator, I was second vice president, first vice president. Here I sit today as president of one of the greatest organizations, I believe, in the United States for the work that we do. I honestly believe that, and I'm totally committed to making it continue to be one of the largest and one of the greatest organizations. And I'm just so proud to lead all these people. It's, you know, and I keep telling Keith, I tell everybody, it's not about me being the state president, it's about us. It's always got to be about us. Because once we all think it's about each other, it's over. It's over for the organization, it's over for everybody. It's about us.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the way and that's how I try to operate, you know, with the Grand Lodge.
What have been some of the personal benefits that you've gotten as a member? Keith, we'll start with you.
There's an expression in organizations, no matter what level or what organization, what you put into it, you get out of it. And it's very simple. We put a lot into it. Robert and his Grand Council and myself as one of his appointees and the other people, we put a lot into it. And what do you get out of it? Satisfaction of knowing you're helping your fellow men and women with charities. Satisfaction of making your community better for Italian Americans. Satisfaction to have a leader like our state president who understands people, who knows how to say to people and handle issues in a professional as he is man in his business life and this fraternal life, where you feel like $1 million even if you make a mistake. That's pretty good. But more out of it, what I get out of it is friendship, people, helping people of the same heritage and culture and values, as well as a lot of people who are just good people on Long Island. If you don't join organizations, you don't know your fellow brethren and neighbor on Long Island. I'm in Massapequa, you're here, Smithtown, Robertson, Yonkers. But look at us. We're brethren in the organization.
Absolutely.
Yeah. How about you, Bob? Do you find your personal takeaway from the organization? What is it?
I have been, I'm in love with it. I'm in love with this organization. I've met people all over the state, and now at the national level, now I know people all over the country, and we're all connected with this one. We're all connected. We're the mosaic, but we're all connected. And it's, I can't tell you how proud I am to be a member. I live and breathe my Italian heritage, you know, and I think I realized that when I was young. When I was about 14 years old, 13, 14 years old, I came from a very diverse neighborhood in the Bronx. I hung out, as they say, we hung out with Jewish kids, Irish kids, kids of all ethnic backgrounds. And what started to make me see the difference was when you would go to their house. I would go to my house, I would eat dinner, and I said, wow, this is, my mom would put out stuff, food, and there'd be tons of food. We'd go to, you know, Uncle Anthony's house, and there'd be food out there. But then I go to my friend's house that have different ethnic background, and I was saying, wow, I said, this is different, the food is different here. And just the way they operated, the way the family operated, the whole structure of the family. I realized when I was about 13, 14 years old, I'm happy I'm Italian. I was glad to be Italian, because this is where I know I belong. And I think from that moment on, I was always proud of my Italian heritage, and I committed myself there to defend it to the day I die.
Why don't we take a moment to explore your Italian heritage? Tell us a little bit about your Italian background.
My father's family came from Sicily. My grandfather came from Messina. My grandmother came from Catania. My mother's family came from Naples. My father's parents were born over there, as a couple of his siblings were born over there. My father was born here in America.
Mm-hmm.
They came out of East Harlem, at 119th Street, but it was very Italian back then. And my mother's family also came out of East Harlem, but her father was born here. My grandfather's parents were born over in Naples. And they grew up, they moved up to the Bronx back in the early 50s, when everybody was moving up to the Bronx from Harlem. My father was very active in politics. He was very active with my grandfather. My grandfather was a Knights of Columbus.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, my father was very proud of his Italian heritage. My grandmother hardly even spoke English.
Well, do you know what was the reason why they immigrated to the United States?
If I remember correctly, my father told me that his father wanted to have his own business, wanted to do his own thing, and he knew that if he came to America, he could make that happen. And when he did come to America, that's what he did. He sold goods, he sold housewares and whatnot. My father's father, yeah, I remember him saying that. My grandfather, on my mother's side again, was born here, so he was already he was American at that point.
Right.
Yeah.
Keith, could you tell us a little bit about your Italian background?
The name Wilson, of course, is deceiving, but my dad was German and English. My mother was German Italian. On my mother's side, her mother was Italian. My great-grandparents came over here from Italy, Catania, Sicily, like Robert's on his side.
Right.
And when they immigrated here in the 30s, Rose and Leo Cassiopo, they had 6 kids, one of which was my grandmother on my mother's side, my grandmother Grace. And they lived with us our whole life, but we came to Nassau County in 1968. And I can remember, almost like Robert was just saying, my grandmother had 5 brothers and sisters. And my father, German English, marrying into an Italian family, he was Italianized right away. He'd go pick up my godparents in Howard Beach, because they didn't drive, and bring them out here. And my grandmother and my mother be in the kitchen making us all dinner. And we'd sit around the table and talk and everything, and have dinner together, and then later on the fruit and the nuts would come out. And then later on, Ed Sullivan would go on TV every Sunday night at 7 or 8 o'clock. And that was what it was. My dad would cut his own grass with a Toro mower. My uncle would help paint the fence outside, where I live to this day. And it was really the values, again, in the 20th century, from the century before, like I said before. And being a quarter Sicilian as I am, I took pride in my mom's heritage. She was a great lady. My mother's was always a favorite person, and her favorite word was compassion. And when you use compassion with people, and you have that for people, and that's what we do in the work we do in the order, compassion for people. And nothing is, of course, perfect, but you do the best you can and take care of people and help them by virtue of your pocketbook or the money you give. And that's what I was taught in my home. You help. My father had a thing, give back to your community. He was a scoutmaster. He was involved in his church, St. James. He was involved in baseball with my brother and I, and that's what we did. We saw him do it, and that's why I took a role model from my dad. And as an Italian-American, this was the perfect place.
Now, Keith, you are in the Columbus Lodge. You're in the Knights of Columbus. Can you tell us a little bit about the importance of Columbus to Italian Americans?
Well, certainly as the discoverer of America, I mean, he's the role model for all of us. He set the course, if no pun intended, as a role model for all of us for this country. And our state president can get into more facts about the coalition and what's going on with him now. But I would just say that I'm a very proud man of 550 years ago, what he did for us, founding the New World with his 3 ships, the Nina, Pinta, and Santa Maria, and the people that were on there. And the fact of the matter is, without him, we might not be sitting here right now, because he might not have discovered the New World. And I'm just proud that my lodge is named after him, and the Knights of Columbus is named after him. And even the parade that I chair, the Columbus Day Parade.
That's coming up, what?
October 7th.
October 7th, where is that going to be held?
That's in Huntington every year, under the Supervisor Chair Lupinacci, and the man to my right and your left is one of our Grand Marshals this year.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful. Bob, there's been a lot of anti-Columbus sentiment that you've been reading about in the paper and in the media, and in fact, you had mentioned before the city of Seattle. And I had traced down in my researches about Columbus that Seattle was one of the first cities to try and take down a Columbus statue and to remove Columbus Day.
Yes.
What do you think is causing all this anti-Columbus sentiment?
I have to be. I'll be very blunt and candid and quite honest about it. I think it's a politically correct movement by a number of individuals. You know, Italians are basically very. we came from Italy. We came to America. We assimilated. We became American. Is what happened. We became American, and we allowed this to happen. We allowed this to happen because we were very docile. We were law-abiding citizens, and we allowed this to happen. And I think once the politically correct factions took over, I think they saw an opportunity to do this, and we'll speak to the indigenous, because that's what this is all about. The indigenous people want a day. Well, you know what? They have a day. It's August 9th. I don't know if anybody's aware of that, but there's already an indigenous holiday. It's August 9th. It just passed. Okay, but they don't want their own day. They want Columbus Day because they feel like Columbus, erroneously, Columbus did not do what was said. There's, you know, National has a whole thing out about fact versus fiction, about what happened, really how it happened, what Columbus did and what he brought. He brought Christianity. If it wasn't for Columbus, the Indians wouldn't be riding horses. He brought horses in the New World.
Do you know Christopher Columbus? His name literally means the bearer of Christ. The dove who brought Christ. Columbo is the dove. Cristoforo, the Christ carrier, the dove who brought Christ. And that was his mission, to come to the United States and bring Christianity to the world. And to save the indigenous population here, who, according to their belief, had no chance of getting into heaven and for redemption.
And let me just say one more thing, back to what Keith said. After Columbus came, who do you think came here? Europeans, who brought science, art, language, discoveries. We wouldn't be the country we were if it wasn't for him, because they brought all their knowledge to the United States, to America, to the shores of America, and that's why we're one of the greatest countries in the world, because of his discovery. And you can't change that.
And you know, one of the things that the arguments that they have made is that Columbus brought disease to the United States, the smallpox that had decimated the Indian populations. Now, certainly if that happened, he didn't do it deliberately, but very few people know that the Indians gave the sailors venereal disease. Syphilis has its origins in the New World. It was unknown until 1496 in Europe, and it was traced back to Columbus's sailors who returned from the New World. So to say that Columbus came and brought these diseases here deliberately is wrong. It would be like saying the Indians deliberately brought syphilis to Europe to try and kill them. That's just, it happened, but it was not a deliberate act, and it was certainly something that the people
and that speaks to another point, the misinformation, the education. People have to be educated, and unfortunately our education system is not, with the politically correct curriculums that are out there, it's not happening. And this is why our youngsters have to be given the truth. Even adults have to be educated. Once again, we have to re-educate the people, the population, on what's happening. And the Italian community, I think we're finally awake. The Order Sons and Daughters of Italy belongs to a coalition of 57 organizations in New York City that we are absolutely aggressively addressing this. with the statue in New York City. We addressed it last year with the statue in New York City. The statue is going to remain,
Good.
and there will be, I know, I don't believe, I'm not going to say they won't, because you never know what's going to happen
Right.
with politics, because it's all political.
Right.
We believe that there will not even be a plaque.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Yeah, and we've also petitioned to make it a national monument right now, a landmark. So that's where we're at now, and I believe we may be successful on that also.
Yeah, because some of the people in the audience might not know that one of the positions was they were going to leave the statue and put a plaque up describing what a horrible man Columbus was,
Correct.
which is, of course,
Not
false.
Correct.
All lies. And I'm so glad to hear that this plaque is not going to happen, because that would be a terrible, terrible thing.
That's, I don't believe it. I think we're going to be successful with that.
Yeah, so we have this point now where we're fighting back against all of this misinformation
Yeah.
about this great man Columbus. We're still honoring him with the Columbus Day Parade. And what other national goals do you see the order implementing or trying to follow?
I think, we're looking to, and I have to be honest, I think this issue, with this Columbus issue, galvanized the Italian community, and it's good. It's good that it did galvanize this. And I think you're gonna see we're looking for the organization to grow again, because at one time we were 23,000 members, not including their families. We're over 8,000 members, but the families, you could be 20,000 just in New York State.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're looking at a resurgence of pride, your Italian pride, looking for new membership. I know when I was appointed president, I was elected president, I have a public relations firm that we hired to get our message out. Anything that we do, it goes out through a public relations firm now. And again, Keith mentioned it before, we try to speak with one voice, because people with their enthusiasm, with their message, trying to get their message out, their pride that they have for their Italian heritage, sometimes will give the wrong message out, just because they're so proud of what, it just may not go out right. So we speak with one voice, and that's the coalition's also, the coalition's message. One voice regarding the Columbus issue. We're looking to take that coalition nationally with our National Commission for Social Justice. We're looking to link the entire United States and the Italian community together, and that's what I'm hoping that we are successful doing. Listen, I would be so proud if that happened.
That would be wonderful.
Yes, absolutely.
Now Keith, what would be, in your mind, a compelling reason for a person to join the order?
The three principles that we light a candle for at every plenary session: liberty, equality, and fraternity. And those principles are important. Our liberty, to do the things we need to do, the freedom to do what we need to do. Equality, that we're all equal Italians, e pluribus unum, of many one. And the fraternity, the brotherhood and sisterhood of the people we've met in this organization. For instance, this past Monday, our state president and his committee led a golf outing in Woodbury. Saw you there.
Yes.
Had a great time. These are people that would help not only do and accomplish many things in one room, of many one. Fundraising for our charities, helping our budgets, having a fraternal day in a sportsmanlike atmosphere, breaking bread together as Italian Americans, and ultimately making money for the Grand Lodge to meet our state president's goals and obligations we have as an operation, and run like a business that we have in a good way. This is part of the compelling reason why people should join. Plus locally, the local lodge, Dr. Solero Lodge, they have a great talent show. Roberts Lodge has a unique situation where they meet in different restaurants that are members of the order every month to support that brother member. My lodge, we have a feast on Broadway September 29th. One day, 40,000 people on Broadway in one day to raise money for my lodge. And again, all the same goals: breaking bread together, raising money for our order, and doing the work of the order.
And I think also, Dave, I think one of the goals also for us to have somebody join is to just take pride in the Italian heritage, just to keep to pass it on to your children, to pass it on to your grandchildren, to keep that heritage going, so it doesn't just fall to the wayside. We have a terrific our first vice president, Anthony Nacarado. He's doing a tremendous job at membership. He's trying to. We have a number of lodges that we'll be bringing in, 3 or 4 lodges. That's tremendous. And he's doing a great job, and I have to give him I have to give him kudos for that.
Well, that's great.
Yeah, he's done a great job.
What is ironic to me, and I've been thinking about this a lot, Italy, to my family, was not particularly good. I mean, that's why they came to America. My grandfather found poverty in Italy. He did not have opportunity. And he came to America, and he was a proud American.
That's correct.
But when I kept thinking, I said, well, why then am I joining an Italian organization? And in my mind, it's not so much for Italy's sake, it's for the sake of the values that, Keith, that you brought up, the Italian cultural values and the Italian culture that are instilled in the people that are so worthwhile to maintain: the family structure, the sharing, the philanthropy, of course, the food.
Yeah, the culture.
The culture
That we
is
brought to this
so
country.
rich that we brought to the country. Absolutely, the history of the artists and all of the great things that happen in Italy, the architecture, everything. All of these things now, we can incorporate them into our American culture. And they're going to be a very, very, very valuable piece of America. Like you said, the mosaic.
Yes, the mosaic.
And the Italian piece of that mosaic is going to be one of the most beautiful pieces, one of the most valuable pieces. So I want people to understand it's not necessarily that we're glorifying Italy. We are glorifying the Italian culture and the people that it represents, the Italian people.
Yes. You know, the Italian American Museum in Mulberry Street is undergoing a complete renovation, and we're going to be part of that. They're going to expand all these new exhibits, and the Order Sons and Daughters of Italy in America will have a space in that museum to showcase our history.
Mm-hmm.
And it's going to be a great complex with and the history of the Italian Americans will be there from every neighborhood in New York State, New York City will be in that Italian American Museum. It's going to be a great, and we're looking forward to having the Order Sons and Daughters of Italy in America exhibit there.
Wonderful. This is wonderful. Well, it's really been wonderful to have you guys here and to talk to you about such a high level of what the organization is about. Because on my level, of course, the Sons of Italy means fun. You know, we have such a great time at our meetings. We have a very active social calendar, and but you have really struck the underlying tone of how important this really is. It's important to maintain our heritage, our beautiful culture, and to make sure that this is a very appreciated part of the American mosaic.
And I said it when I was elected, you know, everybody wants to know what the Grand Lodge does for the Italian community, the lodges. No, we got it backwards. It's what we do for the Grand Lodge that does for all the Italian American community. It's about what each of us do for the Grand Lodge to make us work together. That's what that's
Bob,
all
I
about.
remember you said that
That's right.
in a speech at the Solero
That's
Lodge.
right.
I remember
I
that.
said that when I got elected too.
Yes, yeah, and you know, I have to say, Bob, you're doing a great job getting around to almost every lodge. I mean,
I'm
this is
trying.
a big
I'm trying.
state, and you got a big job to do. And Keith, I know you do a fantastic job. I want to thank you both
Thank
for
you.
coming.
Thanks for having us.
It's been a
David,
wonderful
thank you.
time talking with you,
It's been a pleasure.
and thank you once again.
Thank you.